I want you to know that we have an amazing philosophy, way of life, faith that does transform lives and moves mountains. If there's any mountains in your life you'd like to move, even just a little, today I'm going to tell you all the secrets, okay? I'm ready. Let's do that. So, of course, I know most of you know some of our history. Dr. Ernest Holmes didn't even finish high school. He was Mr. Question Mark. He was curious about everything. And so he's self-educated. He studied the Bible. He studied world religions. He studied philosophy. He was a lifelong learner, always looking for, really trying to understand, and science. How does science? His goal was that science, in fact, he says in the book, The Science of Mind, he says, there will come a day when science and religion will walk hand in hand. And we're already seeing that with quantum physics. We understand now that a wave, based on who's observing the wave and their expectation, can become a particle or remain a wave. Wow, the power we have to change something into matter from energy. So there's something great going on here. Ernest Holmes had a couple things that really influenced his life. One was, he said when he read Emerson, and Emerson talks about having your own voice. He says, no matter what the world's opinion, speak your opinion loudly. Stick to your truth. Doesn't matter what others think or say. And should you change tomorrow what you think different than today, speak that loudly too. Just take charge. Be who you are. Speak the truth, right? And he said that he had a throat condition before he started studying Emerson, and that gave him, it shifted his whole view of life, of the world. It was a healing for him. His throat condition went away. Another thing that he did probably a little later in life, you may have heard this story. His mother, Anna Holmes, had a heart condition. And he had been studying the teachings of Jesus. We have the teachings of Jesus in our Science of Mind book. He has a whole section talking about the teachings of Jesus. He decided that he would pray the way Jesus did, expecting her to be healed. So he prayed in great faith, I would say, in great faith. And of course, she was healed. She went on to live another 50 years. So these things influenced him. What he did was he was always reading things. Somebody finally said, all these books here were in your office. I'd like to know. He started discussing them, and this man invited him to come to his home and share what he was thinking and what he was reading. He invited some friends. From that little thing, it started in a small group. Finally, there were so many people, Ernest Holmes rented a hall. And he made a little bit of money after he paid the rent. But he filled the hall, and pretty soon the hall was overflowing, and they went to a theater, and they moved. They were at the Wiltern. They were at 2 different theaters in Los Angeles, turning hundreds away, because he had such wisdom to share and was so eloquent. So, what do we believe? What do we teach? Do you have an elevator talk when someone says, what is that thing you go to? What do they teach? What do they believe? Do you have that? Are you ready? Well, hopefully you'll get some gems and you can take them with you. But it does depend for me on who you're talking to. If you're talking to someone that comes from a very fundamentalist background, you may say different things than if you're talking to someone who is a Hindu, for instance. What I want you to know is we understand that there are many paths to God, many paths to God. And whatever path you're on, and wherever you are on that path, you're welcome here. This is a place where, and one of the things he calls this is religious science, and it's scientific in that we get to be the great explorers. We get to decide what our truth is. So the first thing we really teach and know is that there's a power for good in the universe. And I'll bet every one of you has a different idea of God and a different sense of a relationship with this divine presence, right? I don't think the way I feel God, know God, see God is exactly the way you do. So what I've discovered, and I absolutely believe this 100%, is that this something, and Ernest Holmes was great. He used all these different names. He used the universe with a capital U, mind with a capital M, spirit with a capital S, lots of different ways, consciousness with a capital C. This is all the divine. But what I've discovered is that this presence, whatever it is, shows up according to our faith. I read a book once called Coming Home. Had 5 stories of people of different faiths and their amazing spiritual experiences. A Hindu having an interaction with one of the Hindu gods. Very real and powerful. So we know there's this presence. The second thing really is that it is everywhere. And ultimately the second thing is that we ourselves are divine by nature. I have a slide with a quote on it from Ernest Holmes that talks about this. He says more than this. He says, "You belong to the universe in which you live. You are one with the creative genius back of this vast array of ceaseless motion." Ooh, can you just feel into that? Oh, this original flow of life. So we see the divinity in all. And sometimes that's hard to do when they're not treating you well or judging you or being unkind, right? My goal is to see through the eyes of love and understand that's more about them than it is about me, and stand in the presence of God's peace and understanding and discover what's possible. Discover what's possible. So number 1, God is all there is. Number 2, we are one with God. We are divine at our very core. There is something in us that knows our true self. It's never been wounded. With it, all things are possible. It is a peaceful part of the self. It is also wise. I can turn to that within that divine presence and find guidance for my life. And it takes time to develop that relationship. And here's the thing, God isn't something out there. And I heard a minister once say, God's not in you like ink is in a pen. God's in you like the whole pen. Like, let's take a drop of water from the ocean. It has all the elements of the ocean, and yet it is not the whole ocean. That's us, okay? Let's be a drop in the ocean. All that divine is the very essence and core of our beings. Sounds good, right? Whew. It's enough to start with. We could just go home now. I think that's really all we need to know. But then there's another thing that's even better, and that is that as it is done unto you as you believe, that our faith actually transforms the waves into particles and creates our life. That's a big one, isn't it? Yes. So I think there's another quote that says something about this. Oh, yeah. This is something Jesus said in the book of Mark. Have faith in God. I tell you the truth. If anyone says to this mountain, go throw yourself into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart and believes that what he says will happen, it will be done for him. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received. That's the secret, right? Yes. So that picture was taken in Big Sky, Montana, and that's Lone Mountain. I took that picture myself. I thought it was pretty good. What do you think? Budding photographer here. So we really have this amazing power. And yet, when bad things happen, what do you say to yourself? Dang. I thought I had the consciousness that would never let this happen to me. And it's hard, isn't it? But so the only thing I've come up with, this is just my theory, and I think it's true, is that we're part of something greater. The collective consciousness of humanity, the consciousness of our family, our cultural way of seeing the world, our really true deepest expectations. And it's not all up to us. Like, I can't control everything in the world. I can control a lot, and I can also control how I respond to things that happen in life, right? But that doesn't mean that we won't have little things happen along the way. It's what we do with them then that makes a difference. So we can and do manifest amazing things. We used to say we could manifest princes, palaces, and parking places. And I bet you some of you have done that, right? I've manifested parking places, princes, and palaces all over the place. It's a joy. Simply a joy. We've had good parking places at the bank recently. It's wonderful because it's not easy there. But it's actually bigger than that. It's more than that, isn't it? It's about dealing with your everyday life. It's about discovering what you really want. And it's not so much about the thing you might want. It's about how you will feel when you have it. An old example is, a young man wants a red Ferrari. You could pray for a red Ferrari and maybe you get yourself a red Ferrari, but what is back of that? What is the thing that you're really hungry for? Attracting women, right? Okay, let's just get down to it. Let's get down to it. So if you want a new relationship, the way that you pray with faith, without even saying a word, is just begin to really embody the experience you desire. Experience you desire. Begin to feel that you're in a loving, supportive, equal, amazing relationship, and it will be yours. That's how I got my husband, the third one. The third one. The third one. Well, it's a process, right? By then, I had a group of people praying with me, and they wrote beautiful spiritual mind treatments, which is spiritually treating my mind and theirs to know this wonderful truth. And they described a relationship beyond what I could have made up. And I've been I've been with John for 35 years this summer. Woohoo! This stuff works. And third time's the charm, bottom line, right? So, I want to touch on now that you got the basics, you got the principles, right? When I'm talking to someone, my short spiel is, we believe God is all there is. We believe it is done unto you as you believe, and that as you begin to change your mind and have faith in good comes into your life. And of course, I expand depending on who it is. But there you go. You can go home and talk in the elevators to people now, right? So I want to just hit on the basic things like, what do we think about the Bible? Were you wondering? I used to teach a metaphysical Bible. The Bible is actually a library of 66 books written by different people over ages. And it comes from an oral tradition where stories were told. It contains history, some history, real history. It contains allegory, teaching stories. It contains poetry and letters. It's diverse, and it covers a long expanse of time. If you look at the Bible from the Old Testament, in the beginning of the Old Testament, God was a God of one people, the Israelites. He was judgmental, and he could be kind of mean, punishing. Even in the Old Testament, the concept of God was evolving. By the end of the Old Testament, God is now a God of all people. That's a big change, isn't it? A God of all people. What the Bible really is humankind's experience of the divine and trying to understand, teach morals, teach what's right. And some of that stuff in there we don't believe today, I hate to tell you. And yeah, you don't want to read Deuteronomy or we'd be breaking the laws all over the place. So the Bible then evolves into the New Testament where there's a newness. Along comes the teachings of Jesus. And instead of the Father out there that's doing something to us, it's the Father within that doeth the works. There's a sense of a loving God, right? And so I'm going to move from what do we believe about the Bible to what do we really believe about Jesus. We do not believe Jesus was the only Son of God. He said to us, "These and greater things than these shall you do." He was showing us the way, knowing that it is the Father within, it is that dynamic presence of the divine that doeth the works, that creates. Our job is to know the highest truth and see what's possible, yes? So we see Jesus as the great way shower, the great way shower, knowing that he was teaching love. He was teaching accept those that were outcasts. The Good Samaritan is an example. Even the tax collector, the people that you would think were, on the outside. So his message was the possibility for having a wonderful life. He said, "I have come that you might have life and have it more abundantly." He was teaching the joy of God. So now we move on to those favorite topics of mine. Let's see, sin, heaven, and hell. You want to hear about those today? The ABCs of science of mind? So sin is a good one. Did you know that the word sin originally is just an archery term? It meant to miss the mark when you're shooting an arrow. And we've taken on some huge burden about that word, haven't we? Many people. All it means is you made a mistake, and you're not punished for your mistakes. by something outside of you, there's a natural consequence. Yes? Could we just, get rid of any harsh idea about sinning or our mistakes even? I still think that we should make mistakes. We should fail bravely, because then only then are we living life fully, right? So that took care of sin. Are you happy with that? Are you okay? There's no such thing as original sin. In fact, I probably have 2 slides. I skipped one. Let's go back. Let's go to the next one. Let's see. Oh, yeah. This is the power of our thoughts. So this idea that we have the power to change our lives through what we think, this is from the sayings of the Buddha, the Dhammapada. So I'm jumping back to that. What we are today comes from our thoughts of yesterday, and our present thoughts build our life of tomorrow. Our life is the creation of our mind. If a person speaks or acts with a pure mind, joy follows him as his own shadow. This idea of the power of our mind is known throughout most sacred traditions. And I was surprised when my dad told me a story. When he was in school, he lived in Montana, went to a one-room school, way out, out in the country somewhere. And everybody would take their horses and go down to the river to give him a drink at lunchtime. And he didn't go that day, but he decided that he would wait. And then he thought, I should go. So he started to go down. Well, they're already starting to head back. And he thought, well, I'll just race him back then. And this is what he did. He backed his horse down an embankment, and he was going to go hiya. When they came, he was going to race him back, right? So he went hiya, and the horse reared up and fell back on him. Broke his pelvis in 2 places. And of course, he didn't return to school right away, but the horse did. And so they came and got him. They said, you probably won't be able to walk again. But he did. He did. And so sometime later, still a very young man, he's standing by an old prospector, and the old prospector asked him, so how come you don't stand up straight, boy? And my dad said, well, a horse fell on me, and it hurts to stand up straight. And this prospector said to him, how tall do you want to be when you grow up? My dad said, I want to be 6'2". He says, you have the power to be 6'2" and to stand up straight. And this is what my dad told me. And he just pointed to his head and he said, right here, you have the power to do that. Whoa. Well, I want you to know my dad was 6'2" when he joined the Navy, and he always stood up very straight. Very straight. Very straight. This is the power of our mind. Okay, we're going back to sin, heaven, and hell. Let's jump into, I got the red light a minute ago, so I better hurry up with these guys. So heaven and hell. Heaven and hell. What do you think about heaven and hell? Do you think there's a place you go after you pass away? Did you know the word for, well, first of all, I want to say Jesus said, don't look here or there, lo, nor here nor there. The kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven is within. That's a bottom line basic teaching. And in the New Testament and the Old Testament, there were different words for hell. The word Gehenna was in the New Testament, and Gehenna was the dumping place outside of town for trash where their fires were burning most of the time. So when they said something like, you're going to be in hell if you do that, it was like an analogy. If today someone were writing and said, he'll be in a pickle if he keeps that up, 2,000 years from now, they're going to think there's a giant pickle that we had back then, and somehow you'd be in it, So it's just trying to teach principles, right? The other word for hell in the Old Testament is Sheol, and Sheol was simply a resting place. So if you didn't, abide by the laws, you would be in this resting place, Sheol. I'm not quite sure how I picture that, but anyway, so there's heaven and hell. Are you okay with those? Another thing we really believe in is eternal life. Ernest Holmes surprised me when I read him because I didn't know what to believe happened after I passed away. And he says very clearly, you will know and be known. Very clearly, you will know and be known. And I've come to really believe that. We don't expect you to believe everything that we teach. We expect you to practice and see what's true for you. and live that way. Because I think what happens after life is a mystery still. I'm worried about this life right here. But I've known so many people personally that have had those near-death experiences, which are actually kind of death experiences, including a cousin in Montana, including a hospice nurse, who have shared that experience on the other side. Someone in my own community, too. And she said, she would go there, we were dancing and partying and waiting for her, and then she said, I'd wake up here. Why am I still here? So I know there's something there, that our consciousness continues, that life is eternal. And my brain just went numb like that. No, that's not enough. So we really know there's something greater. Now, one of the questions I get is, do we believe in reincarnation? Anybody wonder about that? No, somebody doesn't care, so we don't need to answer that. I'll tell you what, I don't know. And Science of Mind doesn't have a position on that, just in case you think we do. What I do know is that I was taking a class from Dr. Paul Parker, and he said when someone asked him that, he said, the mind knows no bounds in time or space. And I think what he was saying is our mind could go back and see another life. I don't know, but it's up to you. If you want to believe in reincarnation, some people have great stories about their past lives. Go for it. Right now, right here, the most important thing is that we love. That's the final thing I want to say, is that our principles are founded on love. And if you listen to the song, it's about rising up the mountain with love. So I believe we're here to love. That is the greatest purpose for any of us. And then when things are difficult, we know that there's a power and a presence within us that can bring us back to that space of love and joy and peace and power. And that I want to mention, too, that this is Pride Month. And so it's about loving all who may be different than you. It's about accepting and seeing the divine in those that maybe have been marginalized in the past. And I'm happy to know that in our communities, Science Mind communities, that we celebrate our differences. We appreciate that it takes this diversity to create the greatest good for all. So we honor that, we recognize that, we love that. And I have something I want to read to go out with from Emmett Fox. He's so good about love. You've probably heard this before. Ah, yes. Oops. He says, there is no difficulty that enough love will not conquer. Got any difficulties? Use some love. No disease that enough love will not heal. No door that enough love will not open. No gulf that enough love will not bridge. No wall that enough love will not throw down. No sin, remember that's just a mistake, that enough love will not redeem. Redeem means to be made whole. It makes no difference how deeply seated may be the trouble, how great the mistake. A sufficient realization of love will dissolve it all. If only you could love enough, you would be the happiest and most powerful being in the world. So let's all do that. Let's be the happiest and most powerful beings in the world. And as we go out today, let's shine our light brightly. And so it is. So it is. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Oh, thank you so much. And guess what? I like to pray when I finish a talk, so we're going to do our spiritual mind treatment. We're going to treat our minds spiritually for all good before we move forward in our service with our offertory. So just join me if you would. Once again, turning within to the power, the love, the presence of the divine. Knowing that that is who I am. That is who each person here is. We are the presence of God's love. We live and move and have our being in God's peace. We are powerful in creating the lives our hearts desire. And so I speak a word for those here and those online, knowing that whatever the issue is in your life, we're knowing wholeness and healing and well-being is yours. If the need is healthy, loving, precious relationships, I know that the hearts and minds are opening, that there's a new clarity, a deeper sense of connection, and simply joy, love, respect, honoring one another. Old wounds are healed and released, and relationships move to the highest level ever. If the need is for abundance in any way, financial, an abundance of love, lots of flowers in your garden, I know that there's a dynamic creative activity of the universe right now bringing in whatever is desired and needed in the way of abundance. The floodgates of heaven are open. Financial resources are pouring in from sources known and unknown. If it's work in the world, creative expression, a new job, a different job, healing at your old job, healing at the current job, I know that there's something shifting right now. And from this moment, we see and know the perfect work in the world, using talents, creativity, skills, gifts, knowledge, where each person is appreciated, well rewarded, and doing what they love. And if the need is for health and healing in the body, we take a moment to tune into the body, knowing that every cell, every part, every particle has the divine wisdom and energy in it to know its healthy, natural state. So just take a moment to see that, knowing that healing is happening. What doesn't belong is released. Cells are renewed, re-energized. Every part, every particle, every bone, every muscle, every cell. Whatever's needed to bring that healing about is coming forth. Easily and effortlessly. And so as we look toward the rest of today and beyond, we see that our way is well lit and made easy. As we live in love, as the presence of the divine on earth, we are a healing presence. We are bringing the light. Take a moment to be grateful for the words spoken here, knowing that they're already done. It's already what is. Healing is happening. Wholeness is there. Life is good. I am so grateful for knowing this. And so I can release my word to that infinite presence. And will you join me as we affirm this by saying, and so it is. And so it is. Praise God. Woo! All right. Oh, you're so sweet.